Hi guys, this is Sal from Moon Valley, and today we're talking about how to plant a tree the right way. So when we come to a job site, or if you're doing this on your own at home, one of the things we're looking to do is make sure we're not making a mess as we start the excavation process. So we're looking at things like irrigation lines, we're looking at things like maybe a sewer septic clean out, we're looking at gas lines, that kind of stuff as we come in. And in this area, we're working in pretty raw areas, so we don't have to worry about really getting super clean. But as a rule, one of the things we always want to do is rake back and scoop back any landscape stone we have out around the edge so it's nowhere near our working space, as you can see here. If you're using landscape bark or anything decorative, the same thing, we want to rake that out of the way first. And if we're going to be working in that type of an area, which again, we're not here today, we would actually have a tarp out as well to put all this material on top of a tarp. That's really important. We want to make sure it's clean. It's easier to pull all the soil back into the well with a tarp than to try to scoop it in and out of landscape stone and or bark. Another thing we want to do is make sure that we have the tree going in the exact spot that we planned on and making sure it's going to serve its purpose, whether it's blocking a window or privacy or whatever the case may be. And we're going to dig the hole to basically the exact same depth as the container. So we'll have a container out here in a minute to show you that. But the exact same depth, we can use that container a lot of times to check the depth to make sure we have the hole dug right, so we don't have to put it in, take it out, put it in and take it out. And same thing with the width. We want the width about the same size as that container, maybe 10% wider. We're gonna add some soil and water conditioner to the bottom of the hole. We're gonna add the tree in, backfill with this native soil in and around this hole here. And then we're gonna leave a nice decorative well to help hold the water and moisture in and make sure that when we water, it doesn't flood everywhere else but those new roots. And then we're gonna add mulch, our compost basically, and our moon juice over the top. So as we go through this, I'll kind of show you guys and talk you through what we're doing as we go. So guys, one of the things we're doing now is doing last minute preparations for getting this hole dug the right way. It's something we like to do is check with the shovel and make sure we're at the right height. All right, so we know that needs to go into the ground that far, and I'll come around the front here. You're gonna notice I have my gloves and eye protection on. I do that so I don't get injured as I'm handling the plant. I really recommend you do that as well at your house. One thing we wanna do as well is make sure that the hole's wide enough. So that's something I can check real easily while we're waiting here, is making sure that thing's as wide as the container is. And it is, and then some. So it'll be wide enough for us. We don't have to do this twice. That's really important. Another thing we do, again, if we check that depth, and I know I use that S on the shovel as my measuring gauge. You can use a tape measure, you can use an old stick, whatever you'd like. Put that in the ground. So you can see ground level here, it'd be pretty much right at ground level. I'd say we're pretty safe. We're about at that stage just to get the last minute little chunks of dirt and stuff out of there. And you can tell this is a pretty tough hole. This is one of the reasons you have the pros do it. We'll come out and do this crazy digging for you so you guys don't have to. If you want to take it on yourself, you're probably gonna need really good tools, some picks, some shovels, really strong picks. You don't want to get ones that are kind of chintzy and bend, believe it or not, or even jackhammer. Sometimes we get to a job like this, there's enough in there, we have to jackhammer that. So we're gonna use soil and water conditioner in the bottom of the hole. That aids with water penetration. It helps with the tree itself, lowering the amount of alkalinity to the soil. It's gonna make it a little more neutral, which is important for trees to root out and grow. So we're gonna add a little bit of that to the bottom of the hole, and you'll see, again, this is quite a bit of work, so we're gonna have to finish cutting that container off there. And you notice gloves, glasses, super important. Pay attention to safety. See how well rooted in these are? That's why we're cutting the container off, because it kind of sticks to the edge of that bucket. And when we're talking about trees like this, a lot of questions we get are whether or not you need to score these roots. And with palm trees, you never really need to score them. These are container grown, so you really don't have to mess with this at all. This should be pretty ready to go. Even that, you see there's not much to score there. So you really don't have to do that. You're gonna put that right into the hole just like it sits. So now we gotta make sure that we get it as level as we can in the hole. So we're gonna go ahead and tilt that just a little bit. We're gonna get a little bit of soil in the bottom of it. And we gotta start doing the backfill process. So we're gonna take as much of this native soil as we can, try to get out some of the chunks that are in here and backfill with native soil. So I'm gonna show you guys one more pro tip we like to do. We like to take a hose just like this, no end on it, and put that in the bottom of the hole, and we'll turn that on really slowly so it'll slowly backfill. Helps get rid of what's called air pockets, so you don't get soil in these big pockets of air in between. We wanna really have this pack nice and neat. So I'm gonna turn this on in a second. You'll see that hose going over here. So at this point, that hose is running down there, and we're gonna be able to, as we get enough of the good soil back in here, we're gonna backfill with that native soil. And you see the water coming out nice and slow? We're gonna go ahead and backfill nice and tight with that. A lot of times we'll use our shovels or even a good sledgehammer and just pack that soil in really tight around the tree. And see how it's starting to fill in around the edge there? See how it's collapsing already? That's important. This is a really common, overly looked thing that a lot of homeowners and landscapers don't know any better. This is important to do. So what we're doing right now, besides getting our soil evenly dispersed, we're gonna go through and tamp it in a minute, but we're also getting the base made for our well. And this is a really important part as well. A lot of people that haven't planted before don't realize you need something there, almost like a moat would work, as a little bit of a barricade or berm to keep the water in on the roots. When this tree is being watered later on, whether it's by drip systems or by hand with our homeowners, we wanna make sure that the water stays right at the roots. So that part's really important, a little bit of a well. When it's all said and done, this thing will look absolutely perfect and beautiful, nice and clean around the edge there. All right, guys, so something I had mentioned earlier is using something like a hammer like this to help get that soil to pack as we're running this hose in and around the well. You'll notice I'm getting a couple inches already, and I'm barely putting any bit of body weight into it. It's important that we go through and get that nice and tamped. Now, I don't want to get it into the roots. I don't want to do any damage to roots, just on the outside of this well. You can see a couple spots give every now and then. It's just a good practice to go ahead and help with those air pockets. And you notice I still have the hose in there. See how it's giving back here? This is why we go through this process. It's really important. Look back here. See how it gives? So as you do that, you're getting rid of those pockets, and we'll add and build more soil into those spots as we go. So we're gonna use our planting mulch, guys. We're gonna go ahead and enter that all over the soil here. You can use a shovel, you can do it by hand. I'm down here already, so I'm just gonna kind of have it smooth out by hand. We use this, it acts like a layer of insulation. It serves two purposes. You're getting all these good nutrients from this good soil. Every time you water, it soaks down in the roots. Another thing it does, it almost acts like your attic insulation. And what it does, it keeps that cool moisture down in the soil, and it keeps the sun off the roots so you don't get direct sun contact in the roots, so they don't burn, and they don't dry out as quickly. So really a great dual purpose thing to do. And throughout its life, you guys can always come back through and get a bag of our professionally planting mulch and use that on the tree and just kind of continue to compost it as long as you don't put gravel and everything over it. If this was in landscape stone, one of the things that we would definitely recommend is to only bring the gravel up to here for the first 3 months. We want to keep that stone off of the roots so that those roots can always be checked, they're exposed, they're available. Down the road, if you want to add a little stone over it, you can. And one real important thing is to not bury these trunks, whether you're doing it in soil or stone. Make sure that those things don't get buried. That can do some damage to a tree. You're better to plant it much taller than you are lower. Lower is bad for a tree. Never recessed wells, that's a no-no. And let's not put anything against those trunks. It can do damage over time. So our moon juice, guys, is something that we like to use on all of our brand new planted trees. We like to mix it into an old 5-gallon bucket, painter's bucket, something like that. And I like to try to get this around the tree as much as we can. And then we're gonna soak this in and water it in really well for its first time. This tree's getting water for the first time in the ground, so it's really important to saturate the soil and get it to stack in there. And have moon juice on there helps promote new root growth. It's a good hormone, kind of tricks the plant into saying everything's okay, it's been here, and this is its new home, nothing's changed. All right, guys, so we're kind of on the final steps when it comes to installation. Everything's been put in the ground, it's been watered in, soil and water conditioner, mulch, moon juice, got the well in there. Everything's good. One thing we don't want to do is any pruning or anything additionally to it right now. It's in good shape. Let it kind of just settle in and start growing before we do anything like that. It's usually about 2 to 3 months before we even want to think about pruning. And at the earliest, 30 days before we start using some of our fertilizers. So, but we're going to kind of play that by ear. Moon juice, on the other hand, guys, is a great supplement you can use weekly until this guy really gets rooted out. The last thing we want to do is if we have anything like the irrigation that's supposed to be on the tree, is get that put back in place around the tree. And typically, this is something that'll go on either side of the tree. This isn't something that we do as a business. This is just something that if you're gonna put it back in, have it in and around the tree so that when your irrigation system goes, it's watering it. We really strongly recommend your first 2 weeks you water these guys by hand so you can pay attention to what's going on. It might sound like a little bit of work in the beginning, but it really keeps your trees, so you're keeping an eye on it, you know what's happening. They're just like us, there's a change in environment. They're gonna want a little extra attention, so when you come out and you put a hose in here and let it slowly soak in, it's better for the tree. The irrigation on down the road, and this one's gonna need to be extended anyways over to that other side, but that's a great thing to use is irrigation, just so you don't have to come out and babysit it for years to come. But good soak with the hose, put it in the well, turn it on as slow as you can, let it really slowly trickle down. We usually recommend an hour's length of time, obviously depending on your soil and how quickly it soaks it up. But water it in really well here for the next few weeks. Again, we're gonna hold off on fertilizing for a little while, follow instructions right on the labels, right on our bags and bottles, and we'll get this guy growing great for you so you have a beautiful tree for the future.